Studies public platform. We basically now have hosted quite a few scholars this year. This is our inaugural year. We've also hosted various local practitioners doing amazing grassroots work and so on. Emancipatory Futures Studies, as you all know, those of you that have been in the space and so on, it's really about a subaltern perspective and understanding and approach to the future. This is very different from the business schools. It's very different from how governments think about futures. And we are trying to locate futures thinking in the context of changing climate temporalities, in the context of futures in history, futures as part of utopia and dystopia, as part of systemic pathways into the future, decolonizing futures, and grand ecocentric futures. Now, one of the crucial intellectuals, modern intellectuals, that really, if you like, crossed over, that aligned with the subaltern was Karl Marx. And Karl Marx has shaped radical thought, has shaped subaltern alternatives for the greater part of a century and a half. Now, we are really fortunate to have with us a very, very important, if you like, interlocutor of Marx, Kohei, not Kohei, Kohei Saito from Japan. Kohei, and I'm just trying to find this here right now. Kohei has written one of the most interesting books on Marx's ecology. It's path-breaking, and Kohei is working on a project called Mega, which is translating all of Marx's work. He studied in the US and Germany as well as Japan. But he understands German, and he's part of this project, translating all of the works of Karl Marx. And so he has been able to reach into materials that most of us have never heard of, have never caught sight of, etc. Particularly Marx's notebooks on natural sciences and ecology. So his work is really, really path-breaking in bringing that fresh material into our understanding of Marx's ecology, as well as the metabolic lift and so on. So Kohei is an associate professor of political economy at Osaka City University in Japan. His book, Karl Marx's Eco-Socialism, Capital, Nature, and Unfinished Critique of Political Economy, won the prestigious Isaac Deutscher Award recently. He's also the co-editor, as I've been saying, of the Marx Engels Okay. And he's busy working on a project around Marx and the Anthropocene as well. So once again, let's give a warm welcome to you.
Okay. Thank you so much for general introduction. I'm very happy to be here and share my thoughts with you. And it's my first time to come to Africa, so I'm very much looking forward to discussions, and I think I can learn from various concrete movements, because in Japan, unfortunately, there are many eco movements. But yesterday, I talked with Dish, and then I learned that there are so many inspirational movements going on in South Africa, especially. So, really happy to be here. I've been already learning so much. So, I hope that I can a little bit contribute for you, and I can show some new aspects of Karl Marx's eco-socialist ideas, because in recent years we are publishing new materials in this series called Marx Engels Gesamtausgabe, MEGA. This is the first real complete works of Marx and Engels. It publishes really everything, including letters, manuscripts, but also notebooks and notes, even, like diaries and stuff. So this publishes like new materials, a lot of new materials that have been neglected by many Marxists. And because of this neglect, there are unjustified critiques raised against Marx. And one of it is that Marx didn't care about the environment. Marx didn't care about nature. But I'm trying to show that that's not the case. He was really interested in this environmental destruction and the capitalism, and his project of socialism really includes this dimension of sustainable society. Because if the production is not sustainable, humans cannot be really free, right? That's what we are currently witnessing. So that's what I've been writing about in this book called Karl Marx Eco-Socialism. And today I basically talk about chapter 5 of this book. And tomorrow I will talk about chapter 6 of this book. And these two chapters are one of the most original chapters, I think, in this book, because it deals with these notebooks and examines new ways of his ecological ideas. So, just quick overview. I spent like 40 minutes. Enough time for discussion. So we are witnessing that in the last century we are having this huge increase of productivity, and it really changed our life. It became more convenient, and we can connect to everyone in the world. And these are, of course, the positive aspects of technological development and the increase of productive forces. But at the same time, exactly this development of technologies and the productive forces created a so-called ecological crisis on a global scale, such as climate change, desertification, soil erosion, disruption of nitrogen cycle, etc., etc. And these are really the problems that we are currently experiencing without any reasonable solution. And the situation is that basically the entire surface of the Earth is fully covered by traces of human activities, which is basically called Anthropocene. But this situation didn't really realize any modern project, the idea of the absolute human domination over nature. The modern project was basically dominating nature so that human can fully realize its own freedom. But the situation is rather ironical, because even though the productive forces increased a lot, however, that precise development resulted in the increasing inability to control nature. So you have problems like sea level rise, typhoon damage, and drought, and these are problems that nature is causing, but humans don't have any countermeasure against it. So we are in this ecological crisis. But despite this grave situation, basically the capitalist elites are incapable of providing any effective solution. For example, yesterday Fish was saying also the UN framework is not functioning, and one of the examples is the Paris Agreement, right? The Paris Agreement cannot prevent the climate crisis. It cannot prevent this temperature increase of 1.5 degrees Celsius. It will be probably around 3 degrees. So this is not functioning. And the problem is that now the new movements such as Extinction Rebellion, the Friday for Future, are demanding the politicians to do something against ecological crisis. But basically the politicians are quite incapable of thinking beyond the next election and providing any reasonable reaction to these demands from the younger generation. So there's a fundamental dilemma for the capitalist elite, right? Because on the one hand, this solution against climate crisis requires fully abandoning their current political and economic strategy of neoliberalism. But they cannot do this, right? Well, even if they do it, they will basically give up what they have been doing in the last 30 years. So they cannot do it. But if they don't do anything, that would also create a problem. They will basically lose the legitimacy of their own system, and also the system itself get destabilized, right? So this is the dilemma, and especially this is why this is the moment of opportunity, or this is really the challenge for the left, because if the current existing system cannot offer any reasonable solution, I think the solution must come from outside the system, and the radical left needs to provide an alternative vision to this neoliberal capitalism. So in the last 30 years, there was always this end of history left has been quite weak. But now this is really the moment when the radical left really take this as an opportunity to challenge the neoliberal capitalism and presenting a more positive vision of future society, which I call eco-socialism. And for thinking about socialism, right, I think that Karl Marx is still one of the most important theoreticians. So that's why I want to go back to Marx and want to examine his texts to see what we can learn from him if we want to establish eco-socialism. So what is eco-socialism? It's basically very easy idea, a combination of ecology and socialism. It's very easy to say. But in practice and in theory, it has been very difficult because there was a lot of antagonism between the red workers' movement and green environmental movements. So in order for this fusion of the red and green to become possible, there are two conditions. So on the one hand, the red must recognize that the green capitalism is not enough. So basically they have to accept this slogan of system change, not climate change. The green capitalism is not enough. So they have to also take some ideas from the red. But on the other hand, the greens, or the red, the socialists also need to criticize themselves because their ideas have been very productivist. It's basically the idea that the more productive forces is good. The more productive forces prepare material conditions for the future society, etc. But this kind of idea of the productivist understanding of social progress is very problematic. And it was also one of the causes for the environmental destruction. It's also economic determinism. It centers around the economy and other programs such as race, gender, ecology are marginalized. But this cannot be legitimized anymore. So then, but the problem is that I'm more focusing on the second part of critique of socialism. It has been very hard for Marxists to accept this type of critique, right? Or to abandon this productivist idea. So basically many people criticize Marx and Marxism for their naive, unacceptable vision of productivism, or I also call it Prometheanism. Prometheanism is an idea that refuses any natural limit and aims at absolute mastery of nature as a condition of human emancipation. So basically overcoming natural limits is a precise condition for the human emancipation. But this type of idea is fully incompatible with environmental thought, right? Environmental thought basically emphasizes natural limits and the need for the sustainable production within the limits, planetary boundaries, etc. So people like Ted Benton, he's a very famous Marxist, who also tried to combine red and green in the early 90s. He criticized that Marx's flight from any recognition of natural limit as a major flaw of Marxism. And other people say that Prometheanism is basically the cause of destruction of natural environment in the Soviet Union or in other countries. So John Passmore said that nothing could be more ecologically damaging than the Hegelian Marxist doctrine of dominating nature as a condition of human freedom. So it's very unpopular. Forget Marx, we need to be more ecological. But this situation changed around year 2000. Thanks to two American journals, Monthly Review and Capitalism, Nature and Socialism. Because people like Paul Burkett and John Bellamy Foster, who are active in Monthly Review, developed this concept of metabolic cliffs. I'm not going into detail of this today, maybe in the public lecture. But so they analyzed the text by Marx and Engels and found out this concept of rift in metabolism between human and nature is a very central idea for Marx's ecological critique of capitalism. And on the other hand, in Capitalism, Nature and Socialism, people like James O'Connor and Joel Cobell developed this theory of the secondary contradiction of capitalism. And these two theories really opened up a new way of developing the ecological critique of capitalism, taking more like a classical standpoint of Marxist theory. And what I have been doing is that to develop these two tendencies, like recent theoretical developments, more by using new materials. And coming back, this is the new materials published in Mega. So Mega, I wrote one set. So this is the volume of the Marx Engels Gesamtausgabe. This is also the newest volume, the 418. The first one with the section. So this is the fourth section. Fourth section publishes notebooks for Marx and Engels. And this is 18th volume. And the Japanese group edited this, and which includes a lot of notebooks between 1864 to 1868. So basically the time that Marx was writing the first manuscript of Capital, volume 1 to volume 3, and published volume 1 of Capital in 1867. And it contains not only notebooks on political economy or history, but also a lot of natural science. So my question is like, why did Marx study natural science so hard while he was preparing volume 1 of Capital and even volume 3 of Capital, etc. So it's kind of fun to see. Maybe you can pass it around. So these two volumes, one is text and the other supplementary volumes. Includes commentaries and introduction. This is just one volume. We had like 32 volumes for the fourth section, and the entirety, like more than 100, like 115 volumes or something like that. So it's a huge project. That's like a mega project. And my hypothesis is that, like, I want to show that Marx notebooks are very important for understanding his theory of eco-socialism. And there are two reasons. The second one I will discuss tomorrow. But the first one is that we can follow how Marx developed his own ecological critique of capitalism. He was not ecologist at the beginning, I argue. He became more ecological as he criticized capitalism. So by looking at his notebooks, we can really follow how and when he became more ecological. So I think this is very interesting to see this development. So Marx's excerpts on agricultural chemistry that are published in this volume 418 show the decisive modification of his view on modern agriculture in 1860s. And consequently, he became much more critical view of the destructive character of productive forces developed under the capitalist mode of production. So basically said, in 1850s or earlier, he was very optimistic of science and technology. So in that sense, we could say that Marx was still trapped in productivism or Prometheanism. But in the 1860s, he came to recognize natural limit and criticize the destructive consequences caused by precisely by this capitalist development of science and technology. And that's why he came to emphasize this problem of rift in metabolism between humans and nature. And this is also combined with, as I would argue, his critique of Ricardo. So if we neglect this change, we just look at the Communist Manifesto and criticize Marx for productivism. But if we look at other texts from 60s, we can have more nuanced critique of capitalism in terms of ecology. So here's one passage. This is a passage from Capital after he became more ecological. This is a famous one because John Bellamy Foster often uses this passage. He says, in Capital, capitalist mode of production disturbs the metabolic interaction between man and the earth. It prevents the return to the soil of its constituent elements consumed by man in the form of food and clothing. Hence, it hinders the operation of the eternal natural condition for the lasting fertility of the soil. And here, Marx was pretty much influenced by a famous German chemist, Justus von Liebig, and his agricultural chemistry. So he continued to praise Liebig in footnotes. To have developed from the point of view of natural science, the negative, i.e. destructive side of modern agriculture is one of Liebig's immortal merits. And he continues, Liebig's brief comments contain more flashes of the insight than those by modern political economists altogether. So this is a very high praise by Marx with regard to Liebig. But interestingly, Marx had already read Liebig in the 50s. But at the time, not the 7th edition of agricultural chemistry, but the 4th edition. However, Marx did not develop ecological critique of capitalism in the 50s. Why? Because Marx actually focused only on Liebig's optimistic claims about the progress of agricultural productivity thanks to the development of chemistry and physiology in the 50s. And more interestingly, Marx actually read some critical passages about the irrationality of modern agriculture, but he basically ignored these passages. So we can learn what he took note, right? But he neglected certain passages, which indicates that he was not interested in these issues. So reading notebooks, we can learn what was the issue that Marx wanted to study and what he oversaw at the time, because he was not really conscious about those issues. And then I think ecology is a good example, that he is paying very optimistic modernist passages about development of chemistries and other natural sciences, while ignoring the harsh critiques of the irrationality of unsustainable agriculture in North America. Because this one-sided praise of the positive aspect of technological development came from his intention to criticize Ricardo and Marx's law of diminishing returns. The law of diminishing returns is a famous one. You know, the population increases, the civilization has to cultivate less and less fertile land. So the population booms, but the food becomes scarce. That's why Marx has argued for the absolute surplus population. But also, it was the key law for developing the Ricardo's theory of differential land. And basically, Marx didn't like this law. Right? He wanted to criticize Ricardo and Marx's. And that's why he tried to refute this law by showing the possibility of great progress of agricultural productivity through methods like drainage, rotation, and chemical fertilizers. So that's why he became a little bit one-sided in terms of focusing too much on the positive aspects in order to refute the law of diminishing return. So one passage from the 40s is very characteristic. Marx read a book by James Anderson, and he talks about how the agricultural productivity can be increased significantly. He says, productiveness may be made to augment from year to year, till at last it may be made to attain a degree of productiveness, which we cannot, perhaps at this time, conceive an idea. So it's going to be like super productive soils we have, and then everyone will be happy. And this is from 40s, but then also in the 50s, basically Marx read James Anderson again and then quoted similar passages. But he also read other things, and I will sort of introduce some of the notebooks. And in one notebook, Marx read in the 50s the 2 articles from economists. And these articles deal with James Johnston's Notes on North America. Johnston was a geologist, and he traveled North America, and he basically made a report on the situation of North American agriculture. According to Johnston, the wheat exporting power of North America has not only been much exaggerated, but is actually not slowly diminishing or even worn out. And Johnson laments that farmers are not seriously concerned with this issue of exhaustion because the farmers can simply sell their land and buy cheaper uncultivated land in the West. So they can just abandon, go farther west and then cultivate again, exhaust it and go farther west. So they are not really concerned with sustainability. So Johnston says it is not surprising that the soil productivity is rapidly decreasing in North America when we learn that in many districts the land has been cropped with wheat for 50 years without any other manure than ton of gypsum a year applied to the whole farm. So Johnston concludes American agriculture is in a very primitive state. But Marx did not pay attention to these passages. I mean that he didn't quote these passages in his notebook. But rather he was more interested in the future possibility of improving American agriculture under the development of capitalism. So now it's in a pre-capitalist, primitive state, but once capitalism comes in, the new technologies and new machines, then the North American agriculture will be more productive. That's what Marx was interested in. Take a look at another excerpt from John Morton's On the Nature and the Property of Soils. This book is regarded as one of the earliest study on the soil composition. But, you know, it's a very old book, so Morton didn't really understand the role of minerals or inorganic substances for plant growth. So, because this is basically the discovery that English made after 1842. So John Morton basically thought that they merely changed the texture of the soil. And he is very also optimistic. He says, on a careful examination, one finds that the production of vegetables will never exhaust the land. That's very optimistic. But this optimism is conditioned by one thing. He says, the power of nature to create vegetable productions appear never to diminish because the decay of one crop becomes the nourishment of the next. So there's a cycle. You take the crop, but then these crops go back to the soil. So that's why, says Morton, the soils are never exhausted. So this is very interesting because he thinks that this cycle of soil nutrition is actually a feasible thing, it's possible. But this is exactly this condition of the cycle of nourishment was undermined in the US. And then Henry Charles Carey, his American economist, was criticizing quite harshly this disruption of the cycle of soil nutrition in America. He says, and this is also from the, Marx was also reading Carey at that time in the 50s, and his notebooks contain a lot of excerpts from Carey. In one of those books, Carey says, the tendency of the whole system of the United States is that of taking from the great machine all that it will yield and giving nothing back. He says, if producer and consumer live next to each other, it's very easy to recycle. So they can pay the soils back by giving them the whole refuse after the land is used. However, in North America, farmers do nothing but sending also to distant markets the food they have consumed in the process of being fattened, and thus losing altogether the manure. So Carey developed a very harsh critique of the unsustainable and irrational production of North American agriculture. It's also combined with his critique of the British colonialism, right? Because these products, wheat and corn produced in America, is exported to Britain. That's why this cycle of soil nutrition is disrupted. If he says, so if producer and consumer live close to each other, this problem will be solved. But Marx did not quote these passages. What did he quote? What he quoted is that more optimistic passages. So once the Britain is kicked out from America and the production and the consumption is taking place next to each other, Carey believes that the production of the land will increase infinitely. He says, man is going from the poor soil to better and then returning on his steps to the original poor one and turning up the bar or the line and so on in continuous succession. And at each step in this course, he is making a better machine. So this is a critique of Ricardo's law of diminishing return. Actually, the soil will become more productive with the development of civilization. And this is what Marx called it in his book. So once the separation of the producer and the consumer is overcome, Kohei optimistically foresaw the future development, he says, with the growth of population and wealth, the better soils are cultivated and men are enabled to live closer to each other. So this is basically Marx's interest in critique of Ricardo using Kohei. And then comes to Levy in the 50s. So Levy emphasized the importance of minerals for plant growth, and he basically said that the stock of minerals in the soil is quite limited. So in order to have the sustainable productivity of the soil, we need to return what we have taken out from the soil. He said, so it is necessary to regularly return to the soil to those minerals that are taken out from the soil. The fertility of a soil cannot remain unimpaired unless we replace in it all those substances of which it has been thus deprived. Now, this is affected by manure. So he's basically arguing for using manure for rational agriculture. But he becomes suddenly very optimistic. He says, now we can use massive production of chemical manure, he says. Whether this restoration be affected by means of excrement, ashes, or bones is in a great measure a matter of indifference. A time will come in the future when fields will be manured with a solution of glass, with the ashes of burnt straw, and with the salts of phosphoric acid prepared in chemical manufactories. So here, Levy is very optimistic in the future development of the possibility of the massive chemistry or chemical manures. And Marx really liked this idea. Okay, let's produce this lot of chemical manures and we can overcome Ricardo's pessimistic theory of law of diminishing return. But here's the danger, because Levy goes so far to argue that we don't care about natural limits anymore thanks to chemical manures, he says. In our time, one problem worthy the attention to the scientific agriculture is this: to substitute for the rotation of crops, a rotation of the proper manures by which he shall be enabled to grow on each of his fields those crops, the sales of which, according to his locality and his special object, is the most profitable. How vastly would be the labors of the farmer be simplified if he could succeed in growing on the same piece of land the same crop uninterruptedly without injury to the soil. So, farmers can just choose whatever land and then they can plant whatever they want to sell by using manures. So this is really the Promethean idea of overcoming natural limits by chemical fertilizer. But if Levy is like this optimistic, we cannot really find ecological ideas. Now this is understandable. So things need to change. And things need changes actually in the 60s. Because as we saw, in the 50s there is no ecological critique. We saw only the more optimistic and Promethean ideas of overcoming natural limits through chemistry or through other technologies. But in the 60s he changed his view because Levy also changed his view. And in the 7th edition of Agricultural Chemistry, he develops a new critique of Raubbau, which is a German word, or can be translated as like a robbery agriculture. The idea is basically modern agriculture takes as much as whatever they can take without returning to the soil what they have taken. This is a robbery because they just take it without returning. So this will be a huge social problem in the future because lands will be exhausted and food will be scarce
And this is what these want. It is violation of one of the most rational laws of nature, even if today's generation believes it has a right to destroy them. What is circulating belongs to the present generation, and it is distinct for it. However, what the soil holds in its womb is not the wealth of today's generation, because it belongs to the future generations. But what's happening is that capitalist agriculture doesn't care. It just takes whatever they can take now without thinking about the future generations. So, according to Levy, this will be a problem. Each land will inevitably become more infertile, not only by continuously exporting its crops, but also by uselessly wasting the product of metabolism that accumulate in the large cities. It is clear that the labor as such, gradually but constantly, makes the soil poorer and poorer and exhausted in the end. And the natural course of the robbery agriculture, which has been pursued nowhere on the larger scale than in North America. Now, these are passages that now Marx intensively quotes. As you can see in this volume 418, his notes from Levy is very long and it's very detailed. And so these are the passages that Marx paid attention. While, similar passages can be found in Carey in 50s, but he didn't pay attention. So there is a significant change in here. So the problem is that robbery is not simply a problem because North American agriculture is a pre-capitalist one, right? Rather, he emphasizes in Capital, all progress in increasing the fertility of the soil for a given time is a progress toward ruining the more long-lasting sources of that fertility. And he continues, the more a country proceeds from large-scale industry as the background of its development, as in the case of the United States, the more rapid is this process of destruction. Capitalist production, therefore, only develops the techniques and degree of combination of the social process of production by simultaneously undermining the original sources of all wealth, the soil and the water. So he's basically saying that North America is really the manifestation of the paradox or the destructive character of capitalist agriculture. And the problem is that, capitalism doesn't simply give up, right? Oh, our soil is exhausted, we are dead. No, they try to find a solution. What did they do? They found guano. It's basically an excrement of the sea birds that inhabit in Peru. So this excrement is like a very hard one. Looks like a stone, but then they are piled up like an iron, and they contain a lot of minerals. So basically, the capitalism, like Britain and the US, started to export or take these guano from Peru and imported it to their fields. And then they basically tried to sustain the fertility of the land. But the problem is that this is not sustainable. It's just they are postponing the problem, right? Because the way they produce wheat and corn is always the same. They just take as much as what they can take and then bring it to the city and sell it, and then the workers consume it, and then the excrements are not reproduced to the soil, to the original soil, but they are simply flowing into the river. So this is the problem. The robbery of guano only worsens this disharmony in the material world as a result of the global capitalism, as it organizes the squandering natural resources and the operation of local people on a global scale. So this taking of guano also combined with this colonialist or imperial attitude, like oppressing the local people, like using as a slave to get this guano as much as possible. And so this is the concept of environmental imperialism is expanding all over the world as the centers of capitalism try to postpone the contradictions to greater. So this is what Marx already integrated in his volume-free capital. He says, large-scale land ownership, on the other hand, reduces the agricultural population to a constantly decreasing minimum and confronts it with a constantly growing industrial population conglomerated together in large towns. In this way, it produces conditions that provoke irreparable drift. So this is a concept of drift in the interdependent process between social metabolism and natural metabolism prescribed by the natural law of the soil. The result of this is a squandering of vitality of the soil, and trade of guano, for example, carries this devastation far beyond the bounds of a single country and DB. So here again, Marx is learning from DB and trying to combine his critique to his critique of imperialism and developed it as an environmental imperialism. Right? And this is an interesting way tied to his new critique of Ricardo. Because Ricardo has also a solution to the problem of diminishing returns. He says basically, we can import cheap corns or cheap wheat from other countries, and the Britain should simply focus on the further industrialization. But Marx rejects this idea because such a solution only extends, as we saw, the metabolic rift between human and society to a global scale, because the basic rift is already there in the Britain, and they try to solve it only by shifting it to somewhere else. But that will make the problem even deeper and more global. So basically Marx says that the Ricardo solution is ethnocentric, that he's only caring about Britain's industrialization. But this is not supported, because this cannot be acceptable, because this is supported by the imperial stagnation or domination of the global south. So we can see that the Marx's view of nature changes, and his view of peripheries also changed. He was very optimistic about technological progress, and if you know about Marx in the 50s, the Indian society can be colonized as a kind of precondition for the future society. But his view here now changes, and he also criticizes Ricardo for his ethnocentric attitude towards this program of soil production. So now I'm coming to the conclusion. By looking at notebooks, we can learn, or we can see clearly, that Marx modified his optimism in terms of productive forces in the 60s. So people often don't see these differences in the 50s and 60s and simply say, oh, look at Communist Manifesto, he is very productivist, so we cannot use him as a foundation of eco-socialism. But if you look at notebooks, we can really see that he abandoned these ideas and he changed his view. And in Capital, actually, he rather emphasized the destructive consequences caused by the development of productive forces. And also, he is also criticizing his earlier ethnocentric attitude, trying to combine ecological critique with his critique of imperialism. So now, the socialist demand for the radical transformation of the system of the social production within those social, or within natural limits, right? So we need to update socialism. Often people still think that socialism, okay, we need to develop productivity and technologies first, but that's not the case. We need to really think about eco-socially, we need to think eco-socialism, which means that we need to think how the production can be not only free, but it also must be sustainable. I will come back to this point tomorrow in the public lecture more in detail, because in today's lecture I wanted to show how notebooks can be used for understanding Marx's theoretical development more in detail. But he didn't also, so I'm finishing, but he did not finish this. He was also studying more and more natural sciences after 1868. The notebook that I talked about Levy, is from 1864, but he continued to study natural science even more intensely. And
The question is why, and I will explain tomorrow. But thank you so much.
It's open to comments.